Atlanta News First Plus starts now.
And welcome to Atlanta News First Plus. I am Maria Moreau here for another installment of Catch Up Quick, where we're catching you up on the stories making headlines in and around our community. First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris will be joining me here in a moment to give you your First Alert forecast. I know we're creeping into the weekend and it is beautiful weather, so a lot of you starting to form those weekend plans. I got you. Let's start with some breaking news. I want to take you out to the Sandy Springs community where families living at this apartment complex woke up with a lot of questions after a shooting left one person dead and a lot of investigators trying to piece together exactly what happened overnight. And I do apologize. It looks like we have the incorrect video for that. I'm going to take you out live to our reporter, Don Shipman here. Don, there's been a lot of information that's come in and a lot that is still yet to be learned. What have you gathered so far?
Arrest warrant. So there's been an arrest in this case. So that's really important. That's the brand new information that we have on this. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. This all unfolded last night just after 8 o'clock. Police were called to an apartment complex not too far from the police station here, actually just about 5 minutes from here. The apartment complex is called North Ridge Apartments. It's just off of Roswell Road. They were called there just after 8 o'clock. There were reports of someone being shot. When they got there, they found an adult man in the parking lot with a lot of blood, and they ended up pronouncing him dead right there at the scene. They spent several hours there on the scene investigating, processing the scene, interviewing witnesses, questioning them, collecting a lot of evidence. Turns out with their investigation that they learned that there was some sort of argument between two different parties, the victim and then actually a number of people, including the suspected shooter. At one point, according to the arrest warrant, the victim had actually called an Uber saying that he needed to leave that apartment complex, and he was on the phone with that Uber driver saying, "Hurry, please get here as quickly as possible." The Uber driver told police when they interviewed him that he arrived, and that's when the shooting happened, from what I understand from reading, if I read that warrant correctly, and I apologize, but I was quickly reading it before coming on the air here with you. So that shooting happened just after 8 o'clock, and then I want to explain to you who was arrested, and I have the name of the person arrested, identified as Derek Washington. He is being charged with murder along with a number of other charges. Again, his name is Derek Washington. And then we also have the name of the victim identified as Justin Tucker. Now, here's what happened after police arrived on the scene. Like I mentioned, they spent several hours there. They ended up tracking down the suspect, that Derek Washington, in another apartment at that same complex, from what I understand, a short time later. He was seen leaving and running from that area, going into another apartment with somebody else. So I suspect that there are going to be some other arrests related to this case. We're going to be looking into that, and I know we have our team back at the newsroom there looking into that aspect of all of this. But he was found in another apartment. So there's a lot of moving parts with this, but the key element to this is that there is an arrest in this case, that Derek Washington, that suspect, being charged now with murder and other charges as well. And then we have that victim. His name is Justin Tucker. And we have a community there. We talked with people who live there, visibly upset. We talked with this one woman who was going out to get her car because she came home from work last night, couldn't get into the apartment complex. Everything was cordoned off. She left, came back, still couldn't get in. She ended up leaving her car out at the street, walked in. They finally let her in around 11 o'clock. She just left her car out at the street. So this morning she was coming down to get her car. She was visibly upset, and she was like, she thought this was a safe community. She's like, when I get home from work, do I have to worry about bullets flying by me when I'm trying to get into my apartment? So that community's kind of dealing with this whole situation. She was explaining too that, there's a lot of families that live in that apartment complex. A lot of people with babies. She was explaining that she, saw one woman holding a baby being escorted into the apartment complex by police last night. So a lot of scared people this morning.
And Don, I do believe you shared with us some of those conversations that you had. I'm going to play that for everyone now.
They were saying we could go in one by one. It was just like a very fearful environment. Everybody was scared. People were like, I paid way too much for this to be happening. Like, there are kids that live here. This is a very kid-heavy community, and it's just, I can't even imagine how the parents feel, like, walking into that. Like, someone was holding a baby being escorted into their house. I'm afraid for my safety, like, as a woman walking around at night, like, I thought this is the one place that I could be safe doing that, and now it's like there's a chance there could be bullets flying when I walk in from work. It's just not what I expected from this community.
Yeah, you can really hear the pain and shock in her voice, and I'm sure that's the sentiment of many of the neighbors in this community.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then another thing to add on top of this, I was reading over that arrest warrant, and they were talking about when they went in and they found the suspect in that apartment. They also confiscated a number of guns, and we're talking about not just pistols or like regular guns. They were talking about big guns. They confiscated a lot of guns. So that's got to be scary for the people who live in that community as well.
I can only imagine. Don, I know you're going to stay on top of this story, and we will have another report from you coming up for Atlanta News First News at noon. So we'll let you get back to kind of piecing that together, and we'll check in on you here in the next hour. I want to take everyone out to this other story that we're following, and this was the gentleman that popped up on your screen at the beginning of this stream. I do just want to clarify for everyone, this man behind custody in connection to multiple shootings on Monday. He was taken into custody Monday afternoon, and we did hear from a public defender representing him at his first appearance in court, which he had waived to attend. Well, last night, neighbors and family gathered for a prayer vigil for one of the victims, 40-year-old Lauren Bullis. Now, police say she was shot and killed that Monday while walking her dog. Her alleged killer is behind bars this morning, and we're learning more. We spoke with neighbors at last night's vigil. Atlanta News First, Mary Kate Hamilton reports.
Well, this morning, the suspect, Aloha Lukatan Aiden Abel, is being held here at the DeKalb County Jail without bond. And I've also spent hours poring over arrest warrant affidavits, and they're telling us even more about Abel. Here's what we've learned. According to the affidavit, he was previously arrested in San Diego in 2024. That's for assaulting a peace officer with a deadly weapon, a felony. And an identical man listed as Aiden Aloha Lukatan was arrested last April and found guilty on 4 counts of sexual battery. This in Chatham County. And of course, here in DeKalb County, Abel faces charges including 2 counts of malice murder for the alleged murders of 2 women. One who still has not been identified, and the other, 40-year-old Lauren Bullis. We have new details, but I do want to warn you, they are disturbing. According to the arrest affidavit, police have video that shows Bullis walking her dog in her neighborhood. Police say Abel drove past her, got out of his car, and followed her down the street. Then the arrest affidavit says he shot and stabbed her. According to police, after the assault, Abel ran back to his car, and police later found a knife inside of that car. Records show Abel lived near Bullis, and neighbors, as well as Abel's former roommates, tell us they are shocked.
A little scared, but and it broke my heart because of the nature of the incident. It was so violent.
To find out it was this guy, I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, my stomach dropped. Like, this is unreal.
Abel was scheduled to appear in court yesterday afternoon, but he waived that first appearance. And this morning, we're still pushing law enforcement officials for more details, including the identity of the second woman who was shot. For now, reporting from the DeKalb County Jail, Mary Kate Hamilton, Atlanta News First.
Thank you, Mary Kate, for that report. And another story that we're following, a shooting along I-75 in North turning deadly last night. Atlanta police say they found a 34-year-old woman along I-75 on the northbound side near Central Avenue by the airport. Investigators are now trying to pinpoint exactly where this shooting happened. So far, no word on any suspects or arrests, but we're going to stay on top of that story and bring you the latest and any new details that come out, both on air and online. And this story, the FBI continuing its investigation and releasing new photos of the shooting that hurt Atlanta-based rapper Offset. Now, agents say a large group of people ambushed him and shot him in the leg while trying to rob him last week. This happened outside of a casino in Florida. The FBI says the group then fled in 2 SUVs. Now the FBI is releasing these photos in hopes for further information on their investigation. Of course, once we learn of any new details that develop, you'll hear that from us on the Atlanta News First free breaking news app, as well as here on ANF+. All right, I want to switch gears to really important information for everyone that pays taxes, and hopefully you do. It is April 15th, which means the IRS filing deadline is today. And before you groan, there's some good news here. New changes in tax law could result in higher tax refunds for many Americans. Consumer investigator Better Call Harry has some last-minute options that could save you money.
To the IRS and don't have it, you have more options than you think. At this point, your options are A, file your return, or B, file an extension. If you do nothing, the IRS is going to hit you with a monthly 5% failure to file penalty, and every month it grows up to 25%. If you file for an extension, you avoid that 5% penalty. You still owe what you owe by tax day, but if you don't pay, there's a separate failure to pay penalty. The good news, it's only 0.5%. It is okay if you don't have the money because the IRS offers 2 types of payment plans. If you owe under $100,000, you could qualify for a short-term plan up to 180 days, and you can set it up online. Owe $50,000 or less, you can also do a long-term plan online, monthly payments for up to 6 years. And there is a bonus to doing that, because if you set up an approved IRS payment plan, that 0.5% penalty drops to 0.25% a month. But it will cost you because interest right now runs around 6%. Add the late payment penalty and the setup fee, and it works out to roughly 9% a year. Here's the takeaway. You still have a little time. So if your return is straightforward, get it done. Many online tax preparers now use AI to speed up the process. Stick with names you know and trust, and avoid any preparer who guarantees a refund. I'm Better Call Harry. Atlanta News First investigates.
You can always count on Harry to give you what you need to know at the right times. Thanks so much, Harry. All right, we promised to talk about your weather, so I want to bring in First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris with a look at your forecast. Rodney, I'm just going to say I've been loving the temperatures lately.
I'm glad you've been loving the temperatures, Maria. You're going to get a lot more of it over the next several days. In fact, we're looking at near 90-degree heat, Maria, through Saturday. So that's really the highlight of this Super 7-day forecast I'm going to show you fairly soon. Let's start with a live look over Midtown Atlanta. A lot of this over the next several days. The current temperature in Atlanta right now, 75 degrees. I had 80 at lunch. It might be a little bit cooler than that for lunchtime today, but nonetheless, a great day to get outdoors. So let's first of all get to this record heat that I'm forecasting for you today. The normal for today is 74, so it's 75 right now. We're already above average as we speak at 11:15 in the morning. I'm forecasting 87 for your high. The record today is 87, so we're forecasting to tie that record, and that's going to be a story that's going to continue through at least Saturday. We're going to be close to records or break them. For Thursday, we're going to be just a touch cooler at 86 degrees, and then by Friday, we're up to 90 degrees. We've been talking about this a lot on Atlanta News First, but 90 on Friday, that would be the earliest 90 on record for Atlanta if that does in fact happen. So that gives you perspective of how unusual it is. We don't really get to 90 for a normal high until like July. So this is July-like weather that we're seeing here by the end of the week. Saturday, 88 degrees. If you have any plans over the weekend, Saturday's definitely the better day. Again, a hot afternoon, completely dry. Then Sunday, we do have a chance of some showers in your forecast early, and then Sunday afternoon, definitely dry. And it's only a 20% chance of showers. I'm going to walk you through that forecast model soon, but just know that the best chance of a shower or two in Metro Atlanta will really be as you're getting to church on Sunday morning. Otherwise, the rest of your day is going to be dry and cooler because a cold front is moving through on Sunday. We've had several of these fronts that have tried to move toward Georgia, and they just break down because of high pressure that's over us. But by Sunday, this cold front is going to be strong enough to actually move through the state. So it's going to go from 88 Saturday afternoon to 71 Sunday afternoon. So you will notice a difference in that temperature. And I started talking about this morning, really yesterday, but we want you to know, don't put those jackets away yet. Don't put the sweaters away yet. Monday morning, I'm forecasting 46 in Atlanta. That means like low mid 40s in the suburbs. So it will get cool again at the beginning of next week as you get back to work, and that cooler weather will stick around through Tuesday morning as well. So it's an unbelievable forecast because we're talking about record heat over the next several days, and then cooler temperatures, enough for you to need the jacket again by Monday as you're getting back to work. So here's the forecast model for Sunday. We are really trying to get you some rain here. It's just not going to be much. And I want to point out something. I don't really have enough time to say this when we're on Atlanta News First, but I can kind of get more into it now on Atlanta News First Plus. This is a long-range model that we're using. Our long-range models are good because it allows us to see further in advance, but a disadvantage of the long-range model is the resolution isn't as high. So that green that you see, it looks like it's going to rain everywhere, but it's actually not. It's just because the resolution is low. So we really think that that's going to be more showers instead of a steady rain. But by 5 a.m. on Sunday morning, a few showers possible in northwest Georgia, Rome, LJ. That's going to be moving into Metro Atlanta by 7, 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. So a few showers are possible as you get to church on Sunday. And again, because the resolution on this is low, it looks like it's kind of a steady rain, but that light green is probably just like a spotty showers that'll be out there, scattered showers. And then notice how that quickly moves out. So by the time you leave church on Sunday, any shower activity that is out there will be over. Rest of your Sunday is dry. We're going to see some clouds out there, but it'll definitely be dry Sunday afternoon and going into Sunday evening, and then just cooler. So here's the other story I want to walk you through. We're not going to get much rain out of this on Sunday at all. In fact, I'm barely showing any rain, any measurable rain on Sunday for Metro Atlanta. But I'm running this rainfall map through April the 25th, so the weekend after next, basically the end of the month. And the reason I'm showing you this is because by the end of the month, the April 23rd, 4th, 5th time frame, it does look like we may get a bit more rain. We are trending wetter as we head toward the end of April. So that green is half an inch of rain. This is from today through April 25th, and I do believe most of that half an inch will be by the end of April. So there is some relief, we believe, that's coming. It's just not going to be here over the next 7 days. Just beyond the 7-day forecast is when we think that pattern is going to switch to be a little bit more wetter for you. And we are right now at 0.13 inches of rain for the month of April. At the moment, that's the driest April on record. So we need to get up to 0.35 inches to move away from number one. And based on what I'm seeing here, I do think that that's possible. It's going to have to wait, until the end of April, but we do believe that a series of weather systems are going to move through by the end of the month, and that may create a bit more of a wetter pattern for us. It's not going to really help with the drought. I mean, we're going to need a lot more rain to put a dent in this drought. But I want you to know that beyond this slight chance of rain on Sunday, we do have higher rain chances for you, perhaps, as we get later into the month. And we'll certainly keep you up to date on that. So, First Alert Meteorologist Ella Dorsey, she's going to have an update on your forecast on Atlanta News First at noon. We hope you guys make it an amazing day. And because Maria just came and stood next to me, I'm guessing we're going to send it back to you.
Yes, we are. And I was beaming watching your forecast because those temperatures mean summer is coming.
Yes.
I'm very excited. Thanks so much, Rodney. All right, guys, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your chance to win a brand new home, a brand new car, and other prizes. We're talking about the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway. And stick with us because the World Cup is closer than you think. Our Atlanta News First sports team talks with some of the experts that are following how the U.S. national men's soccer team is doing. We'll be right back. right, and welcome back as we continue our coverage here on ANF Plus. Thanks so much for being with us. I wanted to talk about a major opportunity here in our community to help in the fight to end childhood cancer, and also put yourself in the running for a brand new 2026 home, a car, a bunch of other prizes. If you're familiar with, this is a campaign we do year after year, and it is our 4th year partnering up with the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Now the Dream Home giveaway excitement is ramping up here for us, and this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for you and your family. We have a bunch of prizes, and they are bigger and better than ever this year. A $100 ticket puts you in the running and also supports St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in their help for families battling childhood cancer. So that ticket deadline has been extended. You now have until April 24th to get your ticket and qualify for the St. Jude Dream Home. And this is what that home looks like, still in the works of being built up, but when it is finished, it is going to be beautiful. I mean, we've been showing you the renderings. We've been talking with the teams that are involved in this project year after year. We have a bunch of other prizes also, a golf cart, a car, and thousands of dollars in gifts available for you. You can go to our website, atlantanewsfirst.com, and that is where you can get your $100 ticket. It doesn't just have to be one ticket, by the way. You can get multiple tickets, and that puts you in the running. And right now, April 24th is going to be the date you want to pay attention to. That is going to be your opportunity for your $100 ticket to have the most power and qualify for all the prizes. As we get closer and closer to that July winner announcement, these prizes are going to start dropping off. Now, you still qualify for the Dream Home, but your ticket could also put you in the running for all the other prizes that I'd mentioned. So make sure you go to atlantanewsfirst.com/St. Jude and learn more, as well as set your date for April 24th and July 9th. That is when we'll announce that winner for the 2026 Dream Home giveaway. All right. I had mentioned soccer and the World Cup, and excitement is ramping up here at Atlanta News First and, of course, around our community. This is a chance for us to highlight Atlanta and to pour into what makes this city so special. So as we talk about the World Cup and all that we can expect out of this summer, all eyes are on the U.S. men's national team, championing them through this period. Atlanta Host Committee Ambassador Kevin Egan talks about the team's 2 friendlies at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and what matches fans should be excited about now that the group stage matches are set. We're going to take you out to that interview with Kevin Egan as we go one-on-one.
Kevin, really appreciate you joining us. We were talking about the U.S. men's national team in the upcoming World Cup. Of course, a couple of friendlies in Atlanta certainly did not go the U.S.'s way. Tell me, what did we learn from those friendlies against Portugal and Belgium?
That we've got a lot of concerns, Avery, right now. The last window before the squad is picked for the World Cup, and the U.S. come away with 2 losses on home soil. And I think more questions than answers at this point as to where exactly this group is at under Mauricio Pochettino. The leaders didn't step up. The defense looks a little bit porous. I'm really lacking confidence in this group right now, and we shouldn't be saying that this close to the World Cup. Now, in saying that, these were games against Belgium and Portugal, superior opposition than what the U.S. will face in their group in Turkey, Paraguay, and Australia. It's a group that the U.S. should win, and really, I think, has to win to get a favorable draw. You would think toward the round of 32 and then kicking on, and hopefully this team will gel, the momentum of a nation behind them, and let's see. But after this latest window in Atlanta, man, so many questions.
Certainly questions to be answered. We looked at the first halves of those games, and those are the ones that the United States feels like they have the most confidence in. Had a 1-1 tie going into the second half with Belgium, and then just a 1-0 deficit against Portugal. But are those first halves more indicative of what the U.S. could be, or do you have to look at the totality of these games as subs are made and maybe some of the depth is in question as well?
No, I think you can lean into the first half. If you're Mauricio Pochettino right now, I think you have to look at the positives and figure out, okay, who's performed well, what's our system, which is really important so the players understand what's expected from them and what's expected from their teammates, and also the synergy amongst the group. But right now, man, it's difficult to understand who the double pivots are going to be. If Tyler Adams is fit, he's in there. Who's his partner going to be at this point? Patrick Agyemang, is out, which I'm sure we'll get to, a big loss for the national team. Who's going to be his replacement in the squad? And obviously the form of Christian Pulisic is really, really important. And right now, he's taken a massive dip. The Christian Pulisic that we saw in 2025, he's a shadow of that player right now.
As we look, we're going to get into certainly those topics, but first let's look at the back line of the U.S. men's national team. You give up 5 goals to Belgium, you give up 2 to Portugal. Seem like maybe some naivety in some of those moments. What do you think about the back line for the U.S. and should there be cause for more concern maybe than when we originally walked into these friendlies?
I think there is concern because look, he's been an incredible pro, but Tim Ream is edging towards 40. And Tim Ream still seems to be the starter. And what I'll say is, over the years, the US have had incredible leaders at the back. You go back to 1994, you know, and you go back to previous World Cups. Names pop off the list: the character of Alexi Lalas, the leadership and the reading of the game of Eddie Pope, you know, the leadership again of Carlos Bocanegra and his no-nonsense approach in games. I'm not seeing that from this group right now. And while they may be playing at good clubs around the world, it doesn't matter. Come the World Cup, you need players that are absolutely ready to step up mentally and physically. Tim Ream seems to be a starter for Mauricio Pochettino. If that's the case, you have to protect him at this age. He's a very good passer out of the back, but you have to protect him with pace. And I don't know, when I think about Mark McKenzie, when I think about Miles Robinson, when I think about Austin Trusty, they're good players, but I'm waiting for that next step when it comes to leadership and evolution within a national team. That's so important when you play against teams like Portugal that'll have Cristiano Ronaldo or other nations. Like, let's say you face Argentina and you get Julian Alvarez leading the line, who's starring right now for Atletico Madrid. This is the big time. The World Cup is the big time. This is the moment that you've been building toward for an awful long time. We remember the hurt of missing out on 2018. 2022, I think, flattered to deceive. We were expecting a little bit more from this group. This is the moment that everyone's been talking about for so long, for the US to step up and do what the women have done on so many occasions. And that's deliver when the pressure, you know, is at fever pitch, when the cauldron of pressure is there for all to see and all to feel. And the US have not done it yet on the men's side. And the men need to make sure that they deliver for this fan base and really galvanize an entire nation that wants to get behind this group. If they start performing and Pulisic starts scoring goals and Balogun starts scoring goals up front, and all of a sudden there's a wave of momentum behind this group, who knows how far this team could go. But right now, if you poll any fan out there for the US men's national team, the concerns are major. They're not minor concerns right now. They're major concerns with the form and the confidence and the leadership within this group.
Talking about the leadership, let's kind of go back to the front line. You mentioned some names, Balogun in there, Pulisic in there. Obviously, Patrick Agyemang, with a serious injury to his Achilles, won't be in form for the World Cup. Who kind of has to step up, and did it make it an easier decision maybe for Pochettino in terms of who's going to be on this World Cup roster going into the summertime?
No, I don't think it's an easy decision at all for Mauricio Pochettino. Pochettino's a fan of Patrick Agyemang. You know, he's someone who offers something completely different. I covered him, you know, when he broke through from Crown Legacy, the second team at Charlotte, to play for Dean Smith in Charlotte, and he led the line brilliantly there. Gets that move to Derby, and he's a fan favourite at Derby, and I'm devastated for him. Absolutely devastated, because he's a real success story of a late bloomer in the game that's thriving right now. His Achilles goes, he's out for the World Cup. Now who steps up in this moment? Well, there's names, you know, Balogun's going to be the starter, but there's names like Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi has been in tremendous form at PSV. You've also got players that are thrown into the mix here from afar. Maybe we're going to see a wild card pick. And I'm seeing on social media an awful lot of people starting to pump up Xavier Gozo right now, who plays with Real Salt Lake, who scored a great goal against Atlanta at the Benz recently. He's 18 years of age, he's a baller, but he's not an out-and-out striker. He can play there, but he's more of a winger, which, to be honest, the US don't have an awful lot of players of his profile. So I'm massively intrigued by this. I just think he'll go with the safe bet of having backups like Pepe and Haji Wright.
You mentioned Tim Ream in that back line and how important he is, maybe from a leadership perspective, kind of having to protect him. Pulisic is the, you know, last name star, just the one name star of this team. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what has to change with him, or what has changed with him, and can he correct it in time for the U.S. to make a run?
Yeah, I think so much is obviously going to be made of Christian Pulisic. He's a player who broke onto the scene when he was, 16 or 17? 17, certainly with the US men's national team. And he has been, they call him Captain America. He's been that guy, but he's never been that personality. He's scored big goals in games. He's been a great footballer. But off the field, even there's question marks around his body language after the loss against Portugal in his interview and things like that. He doesn't seem to have the dog in him that Clint Dempsey would have or Landon Donovan would have publicly. And that's okay. That just means that other players have to step in and help him in that regard. I'm looking at Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams and Tim Ream, for example, in terms of stepping into real leadership roles and be that sort of big personality that this group is going to need in big moments when the bright lights are on them at the World Cup. It's about more than the football on the pitch. It's about carrying yourself and understanding that you need to have a little bit of a swagger. You need to have that little bit of arrogance in these big moments. If you're going to go up against Lionel Messi in Argentina, you cannot be bullied. You've got to figure out ways to get inside the mind of the opponent. And Pulisic needs a bit of help, I feel. Off the field right now, there's all sorts of talk about his personal life at the moment and a breakup with a girlfriend and how that's affecting him on the field. That needs to be cast aside, and they need to figure out the very best way to get the best out of Christian. And maybe you keep him out of the spotlight. Maybe, it's difficult as the captain, but maybe you ask him to just focus on the field. We're going to let other guys take care of the media duties as much as possible. It's just such a crucial time, and he's got to be the guy for the US.
Let's switch gears just a little bit. The World Cup matches that are going to be in Atlanta have been set. Obviously, you've got Czechia beating Denmark, going to play South Africa. You have the DR Congo who beat Jamaica. They will now play Uzbekistan. What do you make of the matches that will be coming to the A now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got 5 games confirmed for the group stages, 3 more. We've got a round of 32, a round of 16, and we have a World Cup semi-final. It still blows my mind that the eyes of the world will be on Atlanta for a World Cup semi-final. We have England if they win their group, which they absolutely will, I think. They'll be coming here for the round of 32. We've got the favourites in many people's eyes, Spain, playing here twice during the group stages. The first game, to be honest, Avery, is the one that jumps off the page for me because it is the ultimate underdog story. It's Spain with Lamine Yamal, the best teenager on the planet, up against Cabo Verde, or Cape Verde, some people call them, a country off the west coast of Africa, a country that consists of 10 islands. It has a population of about Metro Atlanta. It's just crazy to me that Cape Verde have made the World Cup. And now we're going to see, the player like Steven Moreira, who's a former MLS Defender of the Year with Columbus Crew. He's going to be the anchor at the defense for them as they rock in to play against a side like Spain. There's going to be a lot of great stories. And I think even a game like DR Congo, the last time they made the World Cup was 1974 when they were known as Zaire. And they're back at the World Cup now, a nation, I think, of about 110 million people. So the support behind them will be absolutely massive against Uzbekistan, a side that are in the World Cup for the very first time, led by Fabio Cannavaro, former Ballon d'Or winner, the best player in the world that year when he won it, a defender from Italy. So there's tremendous stories throughout. The World Cup is just littered with great stories, and it's littered with the fun and the flavour and the flair, and that's all coming to downtown Atlanta. And I think about the fan fest we're going to have at Centennial Olympic Park, and I think about the Centennial Yards Entertainment District there with Cosm and the Irish Exit. They'll be open at that time. And just the fun that these fans are going to bring, it's going to be absolutely spectacular.
You bring up the fans. I kind of want to bring one more aspect into this from a team perspective to a fan perspective. The ticket prices that have been the talk of conversation, especially on social media. People who think they've signed up for Category 1 tickets, paid for Category 1 tickets, feeling like maybe they aren't getting Category 1 tickets. What's kind of been your opinion of some of that, and what have you seen and heard?
Well, I was playing pickleball last night with a friend of mine who's left incredibly frustrated because he spent an awful lot of money on 3 Category 1 tickets that the ticket prices have now dropped significantly since he bought them. And it's just, the tickets have been a big issue throughout this World Cup that, we're running out of time here. And I hope that fans of the game can afford to go to the World Cup when it's in our backyard. They're obviously going to be expensive. This is a premium tournament. This is the biggest tournament in the world. It's the biggest show on earth. So to go to a World Cup game is a big deal. It's just some of the ticket prices that we've seen are absolutely absurd and astronomical. Now, I will say, if you want to be part of the World Cup and you can't get maybe inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Centennial Olympic Park's Fan Fest is free. You can go and register online for that. Search Atlanta World Cup Fan Fest. You'll see the link right there. It's really easy to do. We're going to have big time acts, celebrities there at Centennial Olympic Park. And as mentioned, we're going to have right next to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, there's the Centennial Yards Entertainment District that will be partially open, but it'll be ready for the World Cup, where COSM is a Las Vegas-style Sphere theater, where you're going to have games where you can book seats and go watch the games there and still take in the pre- and post-game atmosphere all around the stadium. And then the Irish exit is going to have a great bar experience with fans spilling all outside. It's set up to be a huge success. And this is where, Avery, I'm massively proud of the city of Atlanta. The accessibility from the busiest airport in the world to MARTA downtown to the thousands of hotel rooms in the area. We're set up for success, unlike so many other World Cup host cities. And I think Atlanta's set to deliver on the world stage, which makes me so excited.
Who better than an ambassador for the World Cup here in Atlanta to give you exactly what you can expect with the World Cup coming to the A here in just a couple of months. Kevin, we really appreciate your time, man. You have been fantastic for us, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Avery.
All right, thanks so much, Avery, for that. Again, a lot of excitement, and we are going to be your news team to bring you all of the 2026 World Cup fun. We're going to take another short break here, and when we come back, coverage continues on ANF Plus. We speak with an OBGYN on Black Maternal Health Awareness Week, a really important time to discuss something that is not only dangerous, but preventable. Stick with us.
Atlanta News First Plus starts now.
And it is Black Maternal Health Awareness Week, a time to spotlight a crisis that's both urgent and preventable. Black women in the U.S. are far more likely to face serious complications or die during pregnancy and after giving birth. And here in Georgia, it's even more of a concern. More than half of the state is considered a maternal care desert, meaning they do not have access to obstetric care. To talk about that, we are joined for our weekly Ask a Doctor segment by Dr. Joy Baker. She is an obstetrician and gynecologist with Wellstar Health System. And Dr. Baker, I just want to start with your reaction to that statistic. I mean, we are talking about 3 times more deaths for Black mothers than white mothers.
Right. Thank you for having me. You know, that is a statistic that sort of is definitely a gut punch to think about as an obstetrician and also as a Black woman of childbearing age. And so I think that when we talk about these sort of statistics, it's very important that we start to build some solution-based discussions. So I'm very excited to be here with you today.
And thank you so much for joining us to have this conversation. My first question is, what do you think is driving these disparities?
Well, you know, many times people ask the question about whether or not this is a biologic issue. But when I look at it, you know, from my standpoint, I think it's a systems issue, actually. And I think that we have to look at some of the historical context that we have seen in our country, and to also think about how the system might actually be in the way of us providing the best type of care. And unfortunately, Black women are more likely to experience delays in diagnosis and treatment. There's certainly implicit bias that exists within the healthcare setting. And there can also be higher rates of chronic condition. And we talk a lot about a condition called weathering, which is where sometimes living in an institutionalized racism actually metabolically ages Black women, so that they're more likely to have chronic conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes. And then there's also sometimes reduced access to high quality care. There may be reduced access to high quality food sources or parks and recreation. So there's a whole systemic issue that's happening here, that happens both within and outside of the healthcare setting.
It is fascinating to talk about how much your environment can shape not only the quality of care that you receive, but also the types of conditions that you can experience. You mentioned high blood pressure. Are there any other common types of conditions that we see, particularly with Black mothers?
So definitely high blood pressure is a big one. Diabetes can be another, but heart disease. Heart disease is actually the most common cause of, severe maternal morbidity and mortality for Black women. So pre-existing heart disease can be present when folks become pregnant, or it can even be developed during or after the pregnancy. So that's the number one cause of death or near death for Black women.
And we talk about the phrase Black maternal health crisis, and you said it really well, it feels like a gut punch. What does that mean in terms of providing care to real patients that you see day in and day out, and knowing that this is a nationwide issue that we're facing?
It is certainly an issue for all women, but particularly Black women. As you mentioned, Black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die during or around the time of childbirth in Georgia. So, when I'm looking at patients and looking at who's in front of me, I have to always think about what resources they have access to, what things they may need, what sort of community needs there are, or social needs that patient might have. So the social determinants of health are actually very important when it comes to the holistic health of pregnant women, but also their families and communities. So those are all things that I like to consider when I'm talking to patients, and to be on a little bit higher alert for those patients who are most at risk. And that's usually going to be Black mothers, but also folks who are living in rural communities like the one where I practice. So we've seen statistics that show that moms living in more rural areas who may not have access to care can also suffer.
Yeah, I think the statistic is they're twice as likely as those mothers living in more urban communities. Let's talk about that, because we mentioned at the start of this stream the desert, so-called, the lack of care that expectant mothers received in significant parts, half of Georgia. A lot of this comes down to education. You want to make sure that you are providing the best care and taking the best care of yourself for your expected child. For those that can't access a hospital as easily, to access and establish an OBGYN as easily, what do they need to know as they're going through the pregnancy process and preparing for childbirth?
And like you said, education is very important. So arming yourself with as much knowledge as possible is is a key thing that we need to do. There are often opportunities for you to do online courses. There can be opportunities for doula or midwifery support. So it is a very complex issue in terms of how do we provide care for those folks who live further away from the hospital. Another interesting statistic is that the further away you live from a hospital with a labor and delivery unit, the more likely you are to have adverse outcomes during the pregnancy. So reimagining how we think about care delivery systems is very important Here at Wellstar, one of the things that we've been very fortunate to have is the Healthy Start Grant. So we're able to reach moms in more rural counties so that they're able to have access to doula support, education, even with our partnership with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, to get some actual physical needs met that they might have during the pregnancy, like compression socks and blood pressure cuffs. And so that has been very successful for practices like mine, where patients may be coming 1 or even close to 2 hours to seek care. So that has been one solution. In addition, remote monitoring for moms has been something that is bridging some of the gaps for those who are living outside of the metro Atlanta area and may not have as much access to high quality obstetric care.
It's not only empowering, it's life-saving. I mean, that level of care makes all the difference. And when you are in these labor and delivery units as a patient, when you were even just talking one-on-one with your doctor, I feel like advocacy is a big part of it, advocating and educating yourself on how you want your treatment to go. Have you noticed any changes in recent years with how patients advocate for themselves?
Yes, and I love it. I am totally here for it. I think that a educated patient, an empowered patient, is a patient who's going to have a better outcome. So I love that we're having conversations in my practice about, what are the risks and benefits and alternatives of induction versus spontaneous labor. So my patients are coming in with great questions. They're talking about how they want their birth to go. Our doula program is thriving, so doulas will even come with patients, and we'll start to talk about that birth plan and how we want to see the labor and birth unfold. I always say no one gets to control birth, not even me or the medical team or the patient or family, but we should have some things that we're looking forward to, some things that we would like to see happen. There's nothing wrong with having a plan and then having the flexibility to do having the flexibility to change things if something comes about in labor that's unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. On the provider side, is there anything you would like to see more out of the care team that shows up for these patients?
I've been working here and working as a physician leader in our OB department for about 3 or 4 years, and there has been tremendous energy surrounding promoting vaginal birth, and so our nursing staff has been working really hard on learning to position patients so that they are putting them in the best possible position for birth. We're also working a lot on just sort of rethinking that whole arrest of labor label that sometimes patients get if they're not progressing as quickly as we would expect. And, sort of allotting more time, doing more position changes, just thinking about how we can make the experience and the safety better for patients. And so I've been very energized to see the changes. We're also implementing safety bundles in many hospitals across Georgia. The Georgia Perinatal Quality Collaborative is really kind of driving that process, where we help hospitals figure out, like, what are our resources, what do we have access to, and how can we be ready for that rare but very serious obstetric emergency that can occur. So we are training very hard. We do at least 4 to 6 simulations per year at my hospital of things that can be deadly, like sepsis, hemorrhage, where babies maybe get stuck in the birth canal, shoulder dystocia, so hypertensive crises in pregnancy. So we actually simulate these things so that the whole team gets an opportunity to practice, so that when these things do happen, we're ready and we know exactly what to do with that patient.
And I feel like that's so important for the mothers, especially as, they come in and they want to have the smoothest, healthiest birth, a fantastic outcome for their child. We talked a little bit about this, but some symptoms to watch out for. So when a patient starts to experience them, they can kind of flag the difference between needing to call 911 and needing to contact their provider. What are some of those symptoms as expectant mothers start approaching that due date?
Well, First, I always talk to patients about blood pressure. Blood pressure is another significant issue. It is part of that whole cardiovascular disease risk that comes along with pregnancy. Pregnancy puts quite a strain on the heart and the vasculature because the amount of blood and fluids really dramatically increase as part of just the normal changes in pregnancy. So blood pressure is always a big one. I want everybody to have a blood pressure cuff. I want them to be checking that blood pressure at home if there is any abnormality in the blood pressure, if they're having shortness of breath, if they're having any chest pain, if they're having headaches that don't go away with rest or Tylenol, if they're having pain under their right breast that is very deep and achy. Those are all signs that our blood pressure may be out of control and that we need to seek help right away. And then two, if they're not feeling their baby move well, if they're having abnormal vaginal bleeding, like there's so many things that could potentially happen that complicate a pregnancy. So it's hard to know everything, but what I always encourage my patients to familiarize themselves with is the common discomforts of pregnancy, those things that are going to happen that are normal. Anything outside of that, time to seek advice from your OB care team.
Yeah, I mean, we say it takes a village to raise a child. I feel like
Yes.
expectant mothers, mothers in delivery thrive when they have a strong village. Which brings me to my next question, creating those support systems, not just out of your doctor and your provider, but out of the people that surround you, your family, your friends, making sure that they are there for you through this process the best that they can. And oftentimes they want to be, they don't know how. So what does a strong support system look like?
So I think that everyone who is available to support during the pregnancy, the birth, and the postpartum period especially should certainly take part. One of the things I love about our Healthy Start program is that not only is it for moms and babies, but it's for dads, grandparents, really anyone who wants to be closely involved with that family. And so there's a lot of education and support for that entire family unit so that they can attend classes like preparing for birth or breastfeeding, and they're able to sort of figure out the best ways to support that mom. I also love our doula program. I think it is absolutely amazing. I have just been so impressed with our doula care that these patients are getting round-the-clock support. Folks are coming in to help out during the laboring and birth process and in the postpartum period. And we know that moms who have support do better. They do a lot better. And that can be during the pregnancy, during the birth, or especially postpartum. That support system is very important. But not only just the family unit, I'm very interested in how we get our faith communities, how you can maybe have peer counselors who are experienced moms who are available to help out. Like, it really does take the entire village, and all of us have to be engaged in making sure that our moms and babies are safe, not only within the hospital, but also outside of the hospital. Our patients spend a lot more time at home, at church, at work, than they do here in the office or in the hospital.
We're talking with Dr. Joy Baker with Wellstar Health System. Dr. Baker, I want to just drive this point home. It is Black Maternal Health Awareness Week, and it just symbolizes an opportunity to have the conversation that is often not spoken enough about. What is the single most important takeaway for you out of this week?
For me, the Black Mamas Matter Alliance has this theme that that they always talk about joy. Mm-hmm. And about anticipating birth with joy. And I think that we have the tools that we need to implement so that we can make the experience better for patients, but also that we don't want to leave patients in fear, right? We want to encourage them to anticipate their birth with joy, but to arm themselves with knowledge so that they are aware of the risks and the questions that they need to be asking, and also how to escalate concerns. The chain of communication is very important to know, and that's something I talk to my patients about. Like, if you feel like you're not being heard, if something's not going the way that that you expected and you have questions and you don't feel like you're able to voice those questions or you need more support with those, it is okay to ask those questions and say, hey, I'd like to speak with a charge nurse. I have some questions. I'm not sure if I'm being heard in this situation. I don't think that, I think that polite discourse amongst the, from the patient to the OB care team is absolutely appropriate. I think we should ask questions. I think we should understand if there are interventions that are being proposed. I think we need to use my favorite, that BRAIN acronym, which means what are the benefits, what are the risks, what are the alternatives, what other information do I need to know about this drug or this intervention that you're proposing, and then also what happens if I do nothing? Like, what's the prognosis if I decide not to have that? So I think that it's very important that we promote shared decision making within our clinic and hospital settings, and that we also embrace the entire team. Obstetrics is a team sport, and while the physician is usually the leader of that team, we still have our midwives, our doulas, our nurses, our social workers, our chaplains. That entire care team is going to be able to wrap a lot of support around those families. And so, I would say, anticipate your birth with joy, get to know your entire care team, and feel very comfortable raising questions and concerns about your care.
I love a good acronym, and you're right. We have more of a support system sometimes than we ever realize, and people that are ready and willing to step in and help however they can. Dr. Baker, thank you so much for joining us. This is a weekly segment we like to do where we bring on real doctors to answer your most asked questions and talk about the health news and conversations that matter to our community. You can catch these every Wednesday right here on ANF Plus. We will make this video available to you as well as links to connect with WellStar online at atlantanewsfirst.com.